So, where we were last week, we spent a lot of time. We started off talking about chapter 18, verses 3 through 5. We kind of parked there a little bit. We talked about how there is a custom to what Abraham was doing at the time, sitting in the doorway of his tent, waiting to serve travelers. And we talked about how that is really about a service to the Lord, just like Pastor Randy was just talking about. If you, whatever it is that you're doing, we've talked about a husband serving a wife serving a husband, a person coming in here serving the church, pastor serving, the church. If you don't get the first thing right first, which is to serve God, it's probably not going to work out in the long run anyway, because that's where you have to be first. It's not about you. It's not about another person. It's about you serving God and being obedient in that service. There's a lot of people that try to say they're serving God, but they're really serving themselves because they're trying to do things their way instead of His way. So you have to serve God and you have to be obedient in your service. We talked about the three men that were traveling and how they were to Abraham at that moment, they just were looking like men, but they were angels. We know, because we know the whole story now. We know that they were angels, and they came in the form of man, walking down the road, and how they approached him, and how he basically, when he said, "I pray thee," he begged them to stop, so that he could serve them. It may have appeared as though they were going to pass him by, and he had to make an effort to say, "Hold on, let me be your servant." And we spent a little time talking about how he used the word servant in identifying himself. He didn't use any famous title, even though he is the father of our faith and has had conversations with God and could have said a lot of different things. He put himself under the authority of God. He humbled himself and he said, "Let me be thy servant." And so he served them with humility and with a servant's heart. And then we talked about service for a long time last week. We talked about what it means to really serve God, about how Abram served joyfully, and what it means to have joy in your heart, and how we serve and if we serve as people here today in 2014. How do we do that, if we do it at all? And so we talked a lot about service last week, and we continue actually because we didn't finish verses 3 through 5. So we kind of pick it up again right there this week. We get to the verse 4 where it says, "Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet and restore yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread and comfort your hearts. After that ye shall pass on. For therefore are ye come to your servant." And they said, "So do as thou hast said." So let a little water be fetched and washed your feet. We've had the feet washing, and we know that we're talking about a time period where shoes were probably no more than just a strap here and there, and maybe a little canvas kind of thing on the bottom. They were exposed. Your feet were dirty, and you really didn't have any covering. So washing the feet was a big deal in those days, and here he is again being the father of our faith, and he's humbling himself just as Christ humbled himself to wash the feet of his disciples. And as we humble, that's what that ritual that we do, that ceremony that we have here, and when we do it, it's a humbling ceremony. It is for us to put ourselves, that's an act of putting yourself under the authority of God.
Yeah.
Because it's not a humiliating, but it's humbling to do that, because you are putting yourself in a servant position. That's not something that a master of the house does. That's something that the servant does. He comes and he serves you. So you're putting yourself into a servant's role. Then we talked about the refreshment, when it's hot and you get your feet washed at the end of a journey. It's no different than when you've worked all day, you come home, you take a shower or a bath, and you get ready for the nighttime. You feel cleaner. You feel clean. The day is washed off of you. Here you come, you got all that junk on your feet, and you get your feet washed, and you're resting, and you're relaxing, and you're eating, and you're just feeling refreshed. And that was what he wanted them to experience at his service. And so this is the first thing that Abraham proposes. We get to notice that the food does come last, and there'll be a reason for that, you'll see. He again goes, rest yourselves under the tree. We've already heard about the oak trees in the grove of Mamre and the heat of the country, so being in the shade was cool. And I can tell you, in the middle of the desert, in the middle of the day, it's hot. That's all I'm going to say. It's hot.
Yeah.
Real hot.
You know, it's so hot you usually don't want to even talk. You know, and there is very few trees in the middle of the desert, so shade is hard to come by. So when you get into a valley like this, and you have oak trees everywhere, and you have shade, and hopefully you have a little breeze going by, you can find some rest and you can find some comfort sitting underneath a tree. So then he goes and he says, I will fetch a morsel of bread. Now this is the third thing, and it's introduced in its proper order because eating would have come last. It is customary that after you have exercised, traveled, walked, journeyed, that you need to rest first before you eat. That was looked at as unwholesome if you were to eat immediately after exerting yourself. And I did look this up online even today at livestrong.com today, and you can see first it says you should not eat 15 minutes after a workout. I mean, this is physically unhealthy for you. And so their traditions fit in with physical health. And the second, within 2 hours of the workout, you should only eat a snack. That's protein to replenish the things that you have removed in your exercise. That these men have been, and that's how you traveled back then anyway. So there wasn't that big of a problem with fatness, because you was manual labor everything you did, first of all, and you didn't get in a car and go somewhere. You walked, or you rode a camel if you had one. Most of the people, when they got done walking and working, their eating was basically refilling what they had exerted. And so again, you look at their custom, and their custom fits right in with a healthy lifestyle. So he was offering them immediate relief as well as long-lasting relief. And he promises them a morsel, but we're going to see just how much to him that morsel is, because he goes through a lot of stuff here. And he says to them, and then comfort ye your hearts. Eat and refresh your spirit and be renewed in strength, that you may be able to continue on in your journey. And I'm not going to speak for every man, but I have said it, at least on my behalf, the best, what makes me happy is good food. Mm-hmm. You want to get Mike's heart real quick, go ahead. I'll take some food and I'll love you. That's all there is to it. So,
Brother Mike,
yeah.
the old hillbilly woman said, if you want to get a man, get him through his stomach.
Well, the same rule applies in New Jersey then.
There you go.
I'm sure the food is different though, because hey, it's just when you eat and you get refreshed. And here's another thing too. We're talking about a period where they didn't eat as much as we did. Even the founding fathers hunted here, and they ate what they caught, and they didn't eat more than what they needed. And the Depression, was another time period where you had to relearn how you used everything. And you just didn't eat until you were so stuffed you just laid around for an hour. But they ate well and they exercised well. So to have food in your belly and be able to go on for the next few miles after cooling off underneath the shade of the tree, you've got your feet washed, now you're getting food. He's just refilling them in their hearts. And so, and then you can do so merrily. You can continue on in your journey with joy in your heart because you've been taken care of. and you've been treated well. I mean, is that not another thing that we look at as an experience on a vacation? We go out, doesn't how we are treated by hotel people and restaurant people, doesn't that dictate to us a lot of times how much fun we had on, on our vacation?
Yes.
I mean, it can ruin it, especially if you only got like a little 3-day vacation and you have to fight with the management of, they could never get enough towels. I couldn't get an extra pillow. They didn't come and do room service. Room service was late all the time. They'll ruin your whole vacation. So these people are not on vacation. They're working, they're walking, they're journeying, going on, and they're receiving this great service. So that'll refresh you. And then the opposite is true. When you walk away, you've had great service. It's a great time, wasn't it? That was a great little 3-day break right there. So that all matters. It makes a difference, and you walk away happier, and that's exactly what's happening here. He's giving them the service so that when they're done and ready to press on, they will do so with a happy heart. And that's what he says next when he says, and after that ye shall pass on your way. I'm not going to hold you up. I'm going to service you. I'm going to give you. I'm going to be your servant, and then I'm going to let you go. You go do what you got to do. And that's what they did. So it said, for therefore ye are come. Now in those days, travelers could see they had a right to refreshment when he needed it. I mean, it wasn't just, a privilege. When you're journeying, there was almost a right to walk into a town and receive refreshment at the first tent, by the way. The first tent, you see, you kind of expect that. That's supposed to be a part of the custom. It's supposed to be something that tent owner is supposed to do under almost obligation and service to the Lord, that when you're journeying through, it's almost expected. It's kind of like when you go into a restaurant and you seat yourself, you're going to wait to be waited on. That's what they do. And today they get paid for it, but back then it was the blessings. But it's still an expectation, and it's similar in type. Now, we don't know, we're still not knowing whether or not Abraham knew that God had sent them or not, but Abraham did know that he could not let them go by his tent without servicing them. So, go ahead.
Wherefore.
Yeah.
And therefore. He said, therefore, that's the reason why you come to be served.
Yeah.
Wherefore. Therefore, same as wherefore. He said, wherefore you come. You come here to be served.
Right. And this is where I had it in my notes here to tell the story about the conversation we were having at Cabela's, where Brother Billy got upset because we were talking about food that a particular company that shall remain nameless just throws away. Good food that could be eaten by hungry people, and they refuse to donate it to the homeless or whatever. And it was funny because we're sitting there watching Billy, and Billy was getting literally torqued at the conversation. He was getting angry. He's like, "That's just not right. That's just not right." Go
A lot
ahead.
of places do that, though.
Yes.
Even more than that, I've heard, and I remember hearing it last year on the radio, my talk show, there are places that need the food, that are supposed to feed the hungry,
Yeah.
that won't take it from certain places because it's not part of the plan.
Yeah.
That actually need the food. won't
I know
take it.
one place that does it, and that's McDonald's.
But what do?
They throw the hamburgers and stuff
Oh.
in the trash. They don't
Well,
allow
it's a
anybody-
shame, at any rate, and like he was, Brother Billy he was getting upset and had the right to, but if we were doing things the way we're supposed to be doing them, first of all, we wouldn't be cooking in abundance anyway. We would just be making what we need. That's the first thing. The second thing, if we did have extra, it would go and get consumed, not put in the trash. It would go to the needy, and there's somebody who would eat. Because here you go again, back in the day, it was the Christian responsibility to take care of each other, to be a service of each other. even in the early times moving over here to this country and we set up our churches here, really no matter what denomination you were, because there wasn't as many as there are now, but even so, the church is where you went for your welfare. The church is where you went to get some clothes because you had somebody who would always help you, you know, and make you some. There wasn't a store. They made clothes back then, so they would make some food. You know, people would take, you know, great pride in doing that, and they wouldn't even think about it. They wouldn't even complain about having to do that because that's what's supposed to be done. You know, something that has been a great blessing to us this last week with Kathy being down and out is that all week last week, and I guess it's going to happen again tomorrow. I didn't think it would, but it will, I guess. People from quite a few different churches, one lady had this idea, so she started this Facebook page called the Mission Machine. And there's some people that are on it that don't go to church, but most of the people that are on it go to church. And what she uses that for is that if anybody has a family that has a need, they put it on that site, on that page. And then everybody just jumps in to do what they need. She put Kathy out on there, so all week last week, and I guess on Monday too, Kathy hasn't had to do, neither one of us has had to do any cooking. These people have provided dinner for all of us for the whole week.
That's great.
And yeah, and when I found it, I didn't even know that she was doing it. She's my neighbor, and I didn't even know she was doing this. I said, oh, where do I sign up for this? Because this is something I could get into. You know, cook a meal for a family who needs it, whether their house is, because she started this, I guess a house fire put somebody out for a while, and that's when she decided that she was going to start this. And I was just like, yeah, this is something that we should all be doing anyway. You know, and none of them, and they were all happy. You can see the posts that these people put, and they're just happy to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Go ahead.
Brother Mike, the Bible says to take care of the widows and the children anyway.
Yeah, James chapter 1, that's my favorite.
You know, and a lot of churches don't do that.
That was in the last newsletter. Or was it? No, that's this newsletter, I think. Yep. Because we're supposed to be, 2 characteristics of a Christian. 1, separation. 2, service. We're supposed to serve, and we're not supposed to just serve our brothers and sisters, because the Bible also says, what fruit do you get from loving somebody who loves you back? You have to love those that don't love you.
Yep.
You have to serve those who don't believe like you do. And so we're supposed to be a service to everybody. So, and then going forward, so do as thou hast said. The angels have accepted the offer that Abraham made. And that finishes out those 3 verses. Is there any questions? Okay. 6, 7, and 8. And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah and said, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal. Knead it and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran unto the herd and fetched a calf tender and good, and gave it unto a young man, and he hasted to dress it. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat.
You get hungry.
Fat calf.
Oh,
A whole cow.
He just ate toast.
He was slapping.
He just ate toast. You should be full, Dave.
Toast?
You had toast.
Full? I don't think so.
Haste is muhar, and it means to be hurried, to be anxious. Measure is siah, a measure of flour or grain, probably equal to 1/3 of an ephah. The siah is a unit of dry measure of ancient origin used in Jewish law. It equals 1/3 of an ephah or a bath. The bath unit has been established to be 22 liters, which is 5.8 gallons. So 1 siah would be equal to 7.33 liters or 1.93 gallons. So he has told her to basically go get 2 gallons worth of fine meal
Make bread.
to make the cakes out of on the hearth. That's a hearth. It's a brick or stone lined fireplace with or without an oven used for heating and originally also used for cooking food. So that's what that looks like, and it probably, wasn't, well, it was in the tent because they told us to go in the tent. Abraham hasted into the tent. Another vision. I mean, God is talking to Moses still. We can't forget that Moses is transcribing what God is telling him. And God is trying to explain to Moses, and Moses is trying to write it in a way so that we can understand that this was important. He hasted into the tent because he wanted to provide the service. He wasn't doing it slothfully. This wasn't a burden to him. This wasn't something that he felt like he was obligated to do it against his will. He had a joyful heart. He wanted to do it. We're talking, it's funny, we had that conversation about the things that we like. I look at Randy, and I've known Randy a long time. Randy's always been a sports guy, always. And he'll sit there and he'll read the magazines, and most importantly, he'll watch ESPN and all that stuff. You can ask him a question about a statistic, and he probably would know it. He probably knows players on other teams that he's not even interested in. Okay? I don't know how he does it. I don't know why he does it. I don't know why anybody like him does it. Watch the game, you win or lose. Bottom line. I don't care about anything else. You know what I mean? We're getting into the whole guns and hunting thing. So now he's talking about watching gun shows on TV. He's taking that, in my own words, in my brain, he's taking that to extreme. Because I told him my plan is to go out into the woods, lay down, sight it in, pull the trigger, get a deer. That's my plan. And that's all I really want to know. That's all I'm really interested in. That's all I want to do.
You climb the tree, you sit in the tree.
No.
Wait.
Mike's feet are not leaving the ground. Okay? In fact, Mike's belly might get down on the ground. We're staying on the ground.
They call it hunting, not killing, just so you know.
Yeah.
You kill it.
It won't be the first thing that Mike has redefined.
It's not that easy, brother.
That it is in my mind, and that's what makes it fun for me. But I'm saying, here, this is an example, and what I'm saying is, you do that happily. You look forward to doing that stuff. You invest yourself into that stuff. Whether you have a coin collection, you're into coin collecting, dog collecting, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Working on wood. It doesn't matter if it's something that you want to do, you will do it happily. You will invest yourself. You will invest your time. He is moving. And he's making everybody else move. This isn't, when you get around to it, throw some cakes on the fire. No, we're doing this now. And he talks to his young gentleman, his young man, get the calf. Take care of the calf. Dress that now. We're doing this now. And he's excited about this because, again, number one, I'm quite certain he hasn't lost sight of the fact that he's serving his Lord, but these gentlemen need service. And he's going to be the one that's going to provide that. And if you want to put it any other way, he's taken his relationship with his God seriously.
Amen.
He's eagerly serving his Lord. We've got people that come into church on Sunday, we don't see them again until next Sunday. Where's the eagerness in serving their Lord? They don't partake in any church activities. They don't come around. And I'm not talking about in here. I'm talking about the general day Christian. This is their attitude. I'm too busy. I don't even come to church sometimes because I'm too busy. So it's like, this is an example of what we're supposed to do. He's given us the example of what service is supposed to be. So he goes on to say, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the earth. Abraham wanted there to be enough for them to eat and for them to take on their journey. Adam Clark's commentary and study of the biblical weights and measures indicates that this comes out to, in the end product, about 56 pounds of bread.
Wow.
That's what she's cooking.
3 measures of meal, 56 pounds of bread.
That's Adam Clark's study of biblical weights. He comes out that this is going to be about 56 pounds. That's the bread.
Yeah.
We're not even talking about the calf.
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about the bread, the cakes. Okay? And then it says, and then Abraham ran unto the herd. While Sarah and her maids were kneading the dough and making the cakes, he goes out and he talks to one of his herdsmen, his gentleman. And notice that, well, we're going to get into that. To get the calf. He wants the calf taken care of. And fetch the calf tender and good. He's talking about a fat one, a fine fat one. And that it was reckoned, which was, hey, Adam Clark must have been the hillbilly.
Yep. I reckon.
Because he said it, which was reckoned very delicious food.
Yep. There we go.
And a black Angus.
I reckon he did.
And much in use with the time. So we're going to have a juicy fat calf, and we're going to have sufficient bread for 3 people. And so then it says that he gave it unto a young man. Now we're going to look and see that he does not say a servant. He specifically says a young man. So there's a lot of people, including Jarshi, who is one of the most famous rabbis. He died in about 1100. He wrote a lot of commentary because he did a lot of studying on the Jewish ways. But he wrote that he believes that he was talking to Ishmael, because he wasn't talking to a servant, otherwise he would have said servant. So he believes that he was talking to Ishmael, and he was giving Ishmael some orders, and in the process teaching him how to be a servant. Because also in Jewish times, and you can study this, the way it was way back when, you never found a teenage boy outside of the presence of a grown man. Grown men raised teenage boys. Boys didn't play with boys. They didn't hang out with boys. They weren't taught by women. They hung out with grown men, and grown men taught them how to do everything they did. So at this particular period of time, Ishmael, we have already learned, he's in his young teenage days by now. And so here we see Abraham, Jarshi's indicating that Abraham was probably schooling Ishmael on how to do what he's doing, and how you take care of visitors, and what kind of service you provide, and how you put on hospitality in your tent. So he was teaching him how to do that, and that's when they say that that's why what they believe, because it says young man and not a servant. So then he goes on to say he hasted to dress it. He's getting it ready, and he's getting it ready now. This is beautiful, really. Go ahead, brother.
A young calf, you know what that meat's called?
Veal.
Veal.
Yeah,
Cost you more than steak.
yeah. Because we're not talking about a cow. So what he's saying is the boy hastened to do his work, and what's really funny here is that I make requests, give orders, however you want to say it, to my kids all the time. None of them take off running to do it. You know? His dad, Abraham, gave a directive. He got busy. He didn't suck air through his teeth. You know? He didn't ask why. Why do I have to do this? You're the one that wants to entertain them, not me. I'm busy. You know? I mean, you guys can probably think of your own responses. He got busy. And he was obedient quickly.
Was very important.
Yeah.
He hastened, he ran.
He ran.
He ran, and
It was like he somehow or another pulled from Abraham's enthusiasm in what he was doing to serve these 3 men. Somehow or another, this young man, whether it was Ishmael or not, this young man sucked some of that enthusiasm out of him, and he took on some enthusiasm, and he got busy fixing that calf. Go ahead.
It's like dad with us girls. Service, service, service.
He saw it important to please his master, which was his father.
That's how we
Yeah.
were raised.
That's,
Our mother raised us
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore. I know that from experience.
So everybody was in a hurry.
Yeah.
In a hurry, and in a hurry to serve.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, not in a hurry to get home and play video games.
Or to get it.
Because
Or in a hurry to get it over with, right.
wherefore,
Like we were.
therefore, wherefore, you come to be served, and we're gonna hurry up and serve you.
That's right.
Just like fast food should be.
Yeah. Get moving in there, it's fast food, not yet. All right, so the calf which he had dressed. Now, either we're talking the whole of it or the principle of the parts. It's the finest choice, is what the instruction that he gave the young man was to pick the finest. And he's probably going to serve the finest. You know, he's going to serve the tenderloins, and he's going to serve the finest pieces and parts of that calf. He's not providing his visitors with junk.
Right.
The finest of what he's got. And you know how you know that in this story, Abraham is serving God, because this is an example of what we are supposed to do. We don't serve God by giving God junk.
Right.
That's the problem with, if you remember, Cain and Abel. Abel gave the best of what he had. Cain gave God what Cain wanted to give to God. And it wasn't his best. It wasn't the best that he had to give. He was selfish in his offering. Abraham is sitting here teaching us, whether you want to call it tithing, whether you want to call it service, working, labor, worship, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, if you're doing it for God, you better be doing the best that you can do, because God knows your heart. You can't hide from this. We're going to get into it in a second, where Sarah tries to play off what God already knows. God already knows it. You can't half-heartedly serve God, because He doesn't want any of it. If that's the case, you think, well, I'll give Him, I got a dime's worth of favor in the eyes of the Lord today. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. If you didn't do your very best, you got nothing. Because laying down on that cross and dying for you was the very best. And He don't want nothing but the same in return. Go ahead, brother.
You see, it's because if you think about it, all God's really looking for is the service, because whatever it is you're giving up, that belongs to Him anyways. You're not giving Him something that really isn't His. Everything you have belongs to God. So it's really about the willingness in the servant's heart is what He's looking for.
Yeah, I can't remember where I posted that to. But I was having a discussion with somebody about that. It was a question about tithing. Do you have to tithe? Do you have to? Well, some people can't. You should, but then in some people you shouldn't. Because if you're sitting there making $1 million a year, no, you shouldn't tithe. You should do way more than that. Because to whom much is given, much is expected. And if you've been blessed that much, you should be doing more than 10%. There are people who aren't getting anything and they don't have 10% to give. So then people have to give up their time and all of this other. What He cares about, and I'm going to go right, this is the thread, right through everything. What He cares about is you being obedient. That's what He cares about. It doesn't matter in what way it looks like. We all know we have to take care of the church house. So finances, unfortunately, that's a part of the deal. We have to do that. Okay? But what He really cares about is your obedience. Are you being obedient? It's amazing how many people come into a church, expect a blessing, and then walk out and go back out living in the world. You don't give God any obedience. You do things your way. But you come in here, hey, I can't pay this bill, I can't do this, I can't do that, I need help, Lord. Go ahead.
Brother Mike, there's different ways to pay when you don't have the money.
That's right.
Go talk to somebody that's down
Witness.
and out.
Yep.
Help them if they need groceries.
Come in here and vacuum the carpet,
Take-
cut the grass,
Take
rake the
some of your
leaves.
own, I took some of my own groceries
Mhm.
and gave to people that I knew needed.
That's
There's
what we're
different
supposed to do.
ways to do it.
Yep, there sure is. So, then he says he stopped by them under the tree and they did eat. This is also a very common custom for the person who owns the tent, in that what this means is he stood there and continued to serve them. If they needed anything, he was right there, he'd get it for them. He stood wait over them while they enjoyed. If they needed more milk, or if they needed more butter, or if they needed whatever the case may have been, whatever it was, he was right there for them, because that's what that means when he says he stood there by the tree for them. And notice that he didn't have a servant do that. He did that. He put himself in the servant's role. We talked about that a few days ago. Everybody has a role. You may not like it, but that's your role.
Know your role.
I don't think that Christ liked the idea of getting down on the cross and being nailed and crucified, but he knew that that's what he had to do. He knew that from the very beginning.
Yeah, his mama did too.
And he never swayed from what his job was. He had a role to play, and that's the role that he played. He went right down the line. He asked God to let that cup pass by him because it really wasn't something he wanted to do, but it had to be done. And he did it willingly.
Yes, he did.
And he did it, and then he prayed for everybody who put him on the cross. And said, forgive them.
What they did.
So it's not even about, amounts. It's about obedience.
Amen.
We have to be obedient.
Yeah.
And so what we have here is Abraham's hospitality to the three strangers, and then afterwards, his affectionate invitation to them, and then the labors that took place that became Abraham's, so he could be faithful to it. His Christian heart is generous and hospitable. He did it joyfully, and he did it civilly. And we can notice he didn't ask him if he was if these people where they were from. He didn't ask, if you're a stranger to the land, or do you live here, or because that may somehow or another decide whether or not he's going to serve them. He didn't care where they came from or who they belonged to. I'm going to serve you. True faith produces fervent charity. If you're a Christian and you don't have charity, I think we need to have a conversation. I'm not going to say you ain't a Christian. I'm just saying you may have a misunderstanding about something. True greatness never looks down on anyone, and he wasn't looking down on anyone. He could have sat back as the manager, as the CEO, hey, every event we have, our pastor is right there with us, working. He could be the pastor, just sit back and say, I need you guys to take care of that. I need you to take care of this. I need you to do that, this, that, and the other thing, and be the conductor of the orchestra known as the United Free Will Baptist Church. But comes in his sports memorabilia clothes out there, and he's ready to work with the rest of us.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
He does what he's got to do. There are leaders that are not like that. And in the world, in Christian circles, I'm thinking about the benefit dinner. When I was reading this, and I don't know how it wouldn't have hit me, because that's a service. We're going to be serving. And we're sitting here reading this in a time where when we're handing out the plates, are we going to be serving these people with the attitude, it's half an hour left, man, let's get this over with so we can go home, or let's just get this over with and count the money and see how much money we made and let's go home.
Yes.
Or are we going to serve it, and we're going to do this function for this church with Abraham's
Sorry.
enthusiasm? Are we going to haste? Are we going to move? Are we going to have joy in our hearts? Are we going to greet everybody that comes through the line? Are we going to maybe have somebody, an ambassadors, out there walking around, sharing the Word of God? It's funny because yesterday, Thomas will tell you, I had some Jehovah's Witnesses come to my house. We talked about 25 minutes on my porch. They gave me a little book to read. I said, well, that's fine. I said, I'll read it. I said, and then they showed me their Bible, and I said, what's that? And they said, well, that's my Bible. I said, no. I said, where's like all the books? It's like, well, that's in the end. I said, no, that's got to be in the front. You know? And we started talking, they said, well, it's all about heaven and love. And I said, yeah. I said, but you're not talking to me about our fundamental difference in that Christ is God. He is God. But we talked, and we were civil. She wants to come back and talk to me some more. And I'm not, she's looking at this as I'm going to convert this guy, and I'm looking at this as I'm going to convert this gal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm excited. She's like, can I come back in a week or so? I said, yeah. I said, give me 2 weeks. I read slow. This is, you come back in 2 weeks and we'll sit out here, we'll have a cup of coffee, and we'll talk about how great God is. But I'm well aware of why she was there. But she just didn't know what doorstep she was walking on. So,
The Mormons don't come back anymore to my place.
but I'll tell you what she had right. And this is why I brought it up. I almost forgot why I even brought that message up. There's something that she has right. Because I smiled and I must have been wearing it all over my face. She goes, you know I'm a Jehovah's Witness, don't you? And I was like, yeah. I said, I had that.
They know.
I said, from the moment I opened this door and I saw you two standing there and your 2 other cohorts working the other side of the road, I said, I know what you're doing. And she was like, yeah.
But they're always out working.
She's like, the Bible says that this is what we're supposed to do. I said, yes, it is. That's what you're supposed to be out there. You're out there talking about God, trying to spread His word. I said, I'll knock you. I said, more Christians should be doing that.
Yep. They're always
And
out there.
That's where hey, she's working. I wasn't going to be mean and shut the door in her face or anything. I'll talk to you, until you say something wrong. And she was tap dancing, I could tell towards the end, because we started talking about knowing Greek and Hebrew and being able to understand what it is you're reading. She was like, oh, nobody really knows Greek and Hebrew. I said, well, then what are you doing talking to me about, if you're going to teach somebody about what's in the Bible, you better know what's in the Bible then. And you better know what it means. Because if you don't think that Christ is God, then you better go look up some Greek and Hebrew.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like when we talked about how Jesus Christ came down to minister to people. If you take the Bible as what it says, you think He came here to preach.
Come to serve.
He came here to serve. You got to know what the word means. Otherwise, you miss the point. Some things are just as plain as day. Some other things you need to study. You need to get in there. Dig around a little bit. So I couldn't help but thinking about the benefit dinner, and I'm hoping that we have an opportunity to reach somebody. This has really kind of made me think, but yeah, I hope we do well. I hope the Lord provides for us and He blesses us, and I hope we do well, on our end. But that's secondary to the way we should be looking at it. And that is, I hope we get to reach somebody. I hope we save a soul or more that day. I hope that whoever comes and works that thing, works it with enthusiasm. And that we run around and we hasten to get things done.
Get them what they want.
And I think that this lesson, coming so relatively close to this, I think we should all keep it in mind because, we're working for God.
Yeah.
We really are. And if we're going to do that, we need to do it seriously.
Yes, amen.
So it's 10 till, so we're going to stop there, and we will pick up at verse 9 next week. Okay? Beautiful thing.